allow me to elaborate on MTI's plans for the energy, R&D, and tourism sectors in support of the transformation that we are seeking at a larger level in our economy. Let me start with energy, which is a critical resource for any economy. It's a key factor of production. Our aim is to strike a balance between energy security, economic competitiveness, and environment sustainability. And to that end, we seek to diversify our energy sources, promote a competitive industry, and build capabilities so that we can ensure a reliable and competitively priced energy supply for Singaporean households and businesses. Mr. Vikram Nair has quite rightly observed that Singapore will face greater competition from the region in securing our energy supplies. ASEAN countries are net importers of energy, and they accounted for about 20% of the growth in global energy demand in the past 5 years. So that's quite significant. And that share is set to grow, with Southeast Asia's energy demand expected to expand by 80% over the next 25 years. Strong economic growth has fueled regional demand for energy, especially natural gas, which accounts for 80% of electricity generated in Singapore. So it is essential that we diversify our energy sources and options to strengthen our energy security. Our liquefied natural gas terminal, which will commence operations in the second quarter of this year, will broaden our access to fuel sources worldwide. And it will also catalyze opportunities in LNG-related businesses such as trading and bunkering. To ensure that our infrastructure can cater to future needs, we are also building a fourth LNG tank, and that will boost our terminal throughput capacity to 9 million tons per annum. And that should come on stream by sometime in 2015-2016. We are also studying possible frameworks for the future import of LNG, beyond the first tranche of 3 million tons per annum, which we have awarded to BG. EMA has concluded its first round of industry consultations last year and will conduct a second round this year to seek views on the proposed supply framework and implementation details. Mr. Gantiampo asked for the rationale behind the privatization of generation companies, or GenCos. Privatization has helped to increase competition among the 5 active today GenCos in Singapore. And the case Mr. Gan mentioned is the 6th, which is yet to start actually generating. Privatization and the competition that ensues drives innovation, production efficiency, and ultimately maintains competitive pressure on energy prices to the benefit of consumers. This is not a theoretical construct. We have seen evidence of it in Singapore in practice. As a result of privatization and competition, our GenCos have progressively switched from oil-fired plants to more efficient natural gas-fired plants. Had we continued to rely on less efficient generation technology, our electricity tariffs today would be at least 15% higher. So there's a tangible benefit for all Singaporeans arising from this. In fact, the GenCos are continuing their investment in energy-efficient technologies. Over the next 2 years, more than 2,000 megawatts of new generation capacity will be added to our market. That is about 20% of the current installed capacity. And this increased capacity will come from combined cycle gas turbines, which will further enhance competition and, importantly, the efficiency gains in our electricity market. We are also progressively increasing competition in the electricity retail market to further help consumers manage their energy costs. In particular, I would like to inform Mr. Lim and indeed all members of the House that we will be lowering the contestability threshold in phases for commercial and industrial consumers, from the current monthly consumption of 10 megawatt hours to 8 megawatt hours on 1st April 2014, and then to 4 megawatt hours on 1st October 2014. In addition, consumers will be allowed to aggregate their electricity demand at different locations in Singapore in order to meet the prevailing consumption threshold. What does this mean in practical terms? When these measures are implemented in full, it will allow about 70,000 accounts to benefit from increased retail competition in the sale of electricity, up from the current 13,000 accounts. Let me put it another way. Our town councils will be a key beneficiary. All town councils will be able to negotiate for electricity retail packages at competitive market prices for their accounts. SMEs across all sectors will also benefit. For example, in the wholesale and retail trade sector, the number of companies eligible for contestability will nearly triple from the current 1,600 to around 4,200. These include SMEs like Home Fix DIY Private Limited, who will be able to aggregate demand across their 23 stores island-wide, as well as single location companies like Habitat Coffee, who would benefit from the lowering of the contestability threshold to 4 megawatt hours. We are moving in stages to ensure that the back-end systems can scale up to effectively support the implementation process, because we're talking about order of magnitude increases in the accounts that will have to be supported through these enhanced retail contestability measures. Beyond these initial two phases, we are looking at how we can further expand and indeed cover the entire retail electricity market and open it up to competition, a point that Ms. Sylvia Lim has raised. Now, there have been several studies being done, and part of the reason is because the question is how much technology should be involved, whether we should involve, when you talk about the intelligent energy system, the involvement of smart meters, back-end payment systems, because some countries have proceeded with very technology-intensive solutions. Others have taken a more rudimentary approach, just aggregation of accounts, and then they allow that to be contested. So we want to be sure that first, that when we embark on this, we are able to do this in a systematic way and extend it to all households, because we are 1.2 million households. Second, that when we do so, we also have a clear idea of the capacity in the system at the back end. So we're working on it. We should be able to share more in due course in terms of timelines. But the reason why the studies are so involved is precisely because of both the technical and the scale of the technical nature and the scale of the market. Notwithstanding these efforts, we recognize that energy costs may still be a cause for concern for some households. So our policy is to allow the price of our energy to reflect its true cost and not to subsidize energy consumption, which would be wasteful and unsustainable. Instead, we provide targeted assistance. Members are well aware of this, especially for low and middle income households, through the permanent utility save rebates, which were announced in last year's budget. This year's budget has doubled the U-Save rebates across all categories of HDB households via an additional one-off GST voucher U-Save special payment. To illustrate the impact, what it means is that the total U-Save rebates of $520 for a one-room HDB household will on average cover 15 months worth of electricity bill. In other words, effectively, it is more than fully covered. For a two-room household, it will be the equivalent of 10 months. For a three-room household, 6 months, and for a four-room household, 4 months. So these U-Save rebates are substantial and will go a long way in helping our households cope with increases in energy costs. And of course, they can respond to the price signal by modifying their electricity consumption behavior as well. Looking ahead, a key thrust of our energy strategy is to build capabilities and encourage innovation in the evolving energy sector. As Mr. Lim Biao-Chong has pointed out, it is critical that we build up our manpower capacity and capabilities to support the continued growth in the power sector. To that end, EMA is currently working closely with the industry and stakeholders to implement and supplement the recommendations of the Power Sector Manpower Task Force. This was released earlier this year. The power sector in Singapore will need around 2,400 technical professionals over the next 10 years. So to rebrand the power sector and attract fresh talent, we have worked with industry players and other stakeholders to offer scholarships to students from ITEs, polytechnics, and universities. Such scholarships have allowed youths like Nathaniel Tan and Aloysius Lin, both recipients of Senoko Energy's inaugural ITE scholarships, to pursue meaningful career opportunities in the power sector. Over the next 10 to 15 years, we will need more young Singaporeans like Nathaniel and Aloysius to join their more experienced colleagues in assuming key technical and leadership positions in the power sector. There is an opportunity, and we're trying to encourage more young people to take it seriously and to pursue careers in this quite rewarding sector. Separately, Mr. Ee Jen Jong has asked about greater support for the adoption of renewable energy in Singapore. Madam Chair, while we are supportive of efforts to promote renewable energy, firstly, we must note that there are inherent limitations to its applicability to Singapore's circumstances, given the current state of technology. Firstly, Singapore is alternative energy disadvantaged because of our size, our climate, and our geography, which significantly constrain the scope to deploy renewables. The costs of deploying renewable technology systems are still relatively high today compared to energy from the grid. Moreover, these sources are intermittent, variable, and hence cannot generate baseload electricity reliably. So we do not subsidize the consumption of renewables. Mr. Yee is asked, why can't we consider feed-in tariffs like the Germans have? Well, in fact, the Germans are actually scaling back their feed-in tariffs now. And the reason is simple. It's not because they're not scaling back because they have attained their clean energy objectives. What they have realized is that having spent billions of euros, they have found that it is actually an inefficient way of getting the industry or the clean energy sector moving, and in particular in the context of solar power. So what has instead happened is there's been a large-scale importation of low-cost photovoltaic cells and panels from China, from low-cost manufacturers there. So we have to look at it in context. Subsidizing consumption is likely to give us wrong outcomes. What we have chosen to do, however, is to work with industry upstream, investing in research, development, and demonstration projects. This is materially different. Although Mr. Yee seems to think they're the same, they're not. Because when you invest upstream, you're talking about working on measures to enhance the economic feasibility and viability through technology advancement, which will then make its adoption a natural consequence from an economic point of view, as opposed to subsidizing consumption, which masks the true costs and leads to suboptimal outcomes. So we are investing in R&D and building capabilities to facilitate the entry of renewables. So for example, the Energy Innovation Program Office supports solar energy research through the Solar Energy Research Institute of Singapore and the Energy Research Institute at NTU. In addition, Solar Capability Scheme motivates the private sector to offset part of the capital costs involved in installing solar technologies in energy-efficient buildings. The Clean Energy Research and Test Bedding Program provides opportunities for government agencies to partner private companies to develop and test bed clean energy applications using government facilities in Singapore. Mr. Yee and others have asked about examples. There are several examples of companies, local companies, also moving in this direction. One example is Zico Systems, which is involved in a project on solar-powered park and charge stations and electric vehicle infrastructure. And this is an important part of developing a new idea and seeing how we can support the evolution of clean energy applications. Another example is Daily Life Renewable Energy, which works with EMA on the Pulau Ubin microgrid, which we have also worked on as a test bed for how we can use. It's a test bed infrastructure really on renewable energies in the context of a small microgrid infrastructure. These efforts in renewable energy underscore the importance of R&D as an important enabler in our economic transformation. R&D has benefited our companies, particularly SMEs, by building up their innovative capabilities. I think it's a point that many members have referred to directly and indirectly. R&D helps our SMEs transform, move up the value chain, and most importantly, seize higher value growth opportunities. We have seen a growth in the number of SMEs involved actively in R&D. Ms. Jessica Tan has asked this question, and business expenditure on R&D by SMEs has grown at a CAGR, compound annual growth rate of 3% between 2001 and 2011 to reach $551 million in 2011. Our SMEs also benefit from R&D tie-ups with multinational corporations through intra-industry collaborations such as the A-Star Aerospace Program and the Industry Consortium in Industrial Coating and Packaging, ICAP. So this is an ecosystem within the industry where the big companies and our SMEs work together. By integrating across the R&D value chain, SMEs and MNCs can leverage and build on each other's capabilities. In the Infocom technology area, which Ms. Jessica Tan highlighted, SMEs are supported by A-Star's newly established Business Analytics Translational Center, BATC. BATC builds capabilities in SMEs by involving them in its user-led innovation projects and gearing SMEs for growth. By leveraging on technologies developed from the BATC, SMEs can add analytic solutions to their suite of capabilities that are being offered. Further, we are committed to enhancing the transfer of technologies to SMEs and providing support for commercialization. About 70% of A-Star's licensing deals are executed with SMEs. We have seen an increase in the successful commercialization of R&D efforts. Today, ETPL, Exploit Technologies Private Limited, the commercialization arm of A-Star, has granted over 400 licenses for A-Star technologies, with the possibility of more than $500 million of new commercial revenues for licensees. It has also spun off more than 40 startup companies. To help our SMEs enhance their competitive edge, A-Star provides technical advice, technology road mapping, and secondment of A-Star researchers to SMEs through its GetUp program. Since its inception in 2003, GetUp has helped more than 400 SMEs, and over 400 research scientists and engineers have been seconded to more than 240 companies through this program. Just to give you one example, PJI Contract, a local company that specializes in industrial flooring, waterproofing, and surface protection. It is through GetUp, PJI Contract was matched to a nano titanium dioxide technology from A-Star, which it licensed and developed into new products, such as the Delta Nano Hygiene Spray. Over 10% of its sales revenue in 2012 can be attributed to the GetUp program and the specific initiatives. We are also introducing the Technology Adoption Program, TAP, to make technology enhancement more accessible to companies, particularly SMEs, a point that Ms. Jessica Tan and other members have stressed. Through this $51 million program managed by A-Star, we will introduce a team of experienced intermediaries to link companies up with the solution providers from the public and private sectors who can best meet their productivity needs. In the picture there, on the left at the top, is Mr. Xiao Yit-Yu. He's 57 years old, and he is an example of the kind of intermediaries we are talking about. He has worked in EDB for 9 years and A-Star for 20 years, and he has a rich technical knowledge as well as a deep understanding of industry needs. In the last 3 years, he engaged over 250 companies to address their technology needs, and this resulted in more than 180 collaborative projects. Intermediaries like Mr. Xiao will work with A-Star's research institutes, Springs SME centers, as well as productivity centers and centers of innovation to facilitate this engagement. We aim to help companies achieve more than 1,000 technology adoptions over 3 years. This will be done through customization, technology transfer, training, deployment of various technologies, including ICT, RFID, and robotics. Where there are no suitable technology solutions for our companies, technology developers in A-Star and our tertiary institutions will aim to identify and translate at least 20 novel technologies to be employed in our companies, applied in our companies over the next 3 years. We will pilot this program in 6 sectors. It's a question of which sectors and how would we apply them. And specifically, they're in construction, food manufacturing, precision engineering, marine, aerospace, and retail. These have good potential to harness technology to enhance productivity. Companies in these sectors can use productivity and innovation credit, the PIC scheme, to offset their costs of adopting the technologies. In FY 2011, over 500 SMEs claimed PIC for R&D that they had undertaken, up from about 430 in FY 2010. And the total PIC expenditure by SMEs in 2011 was about $183 million. So there is momentum. Of course, we can do more, and that's why we are embarking on this TAP effort. So I want to assure Ms. Jessica Tan and all members of our resolve to continue supporting our SMEs through their business transformation and R&D journey. R&D also catalyzes new growth areas. For example, Singapore is seeing more personal care companies, such as Procter & Gamble, L'Oreal, and Amore Pacific, collaborating with A-Star to conduct R&D in Singapore. With their focus on customized solutions for Asian consumers, they also help to strengthen Singapore's positioning in the regional personal care industry. Recently, I also announced our efforts in developing our satellite industry through the Office for Space Technology and Industry, Austin. In this regard, this year's budget, as DPM Parliament has announced, has established a $90 million satellite industry development fund. Part of this fund will support public-private partnerships in R&D to build up our satellite capabilities. For example, NUS and NTU have established their own space-related R&D programs, which have attracted industry collaborations that could be the nucleus of a new knowledge-intensive industry in our economy. And as more companies anchor their R&D facilities here, they also create high-value jobs for Singaporeans. For example, in the energy and maritime sectors, Lloyd's Register announced the establishment of a group technology center in Singapore with an investment of $35 million. The center is expected to employ 150 full-time staff performing technical research within 5 years. Our total, in terms of gross expenditure on R&D, GERD, in 2011, it reached a high of $7.4 billion, or 2.3% of GDP. And importantly, and I think this goes to the point that Ms. Jessica Tan raised, the business component of it was two-thirds. Two-thirds of this spend was from the business community. So I think it demonstrates that we are able to catalyze and elicit a commensurate and appropriate response from the business community for this R&D initiative. Our total R&D manpower, including researchers, postgraduate students, technicians, and support staff, grew by 4% from 43,000 in 2010 to nearly 45,000 in 2011. A-STAR will support such growth by continuing its strategy of developing local research talent, for example, through its A-STAR Science Award for the Polytechnics. The award provides Polytechnic students with an avenue to pursue their interest in science and to encourage them to pursue a career in R&D. Ms. Chua Pei Chi was a recipient of this inaugural award in 2012. She is a final year student at the School of Engineering in Nanyang Polytechnic and has a particular interest in green technology. Finally, let me address members' questions on the tourism sector. Tourism is one example of an industry vertical where we seek economic and business transformation to achieve quality growth. Last year, we saw the introduction of several new products such as the Giant Panda Forest, Marine Life Park, and best-in-class cruise ships calling at the new Marina Bay Cruise Center. These have strengthened our value proposition as a vibrant and attractive tourist destination. 14.4 million tourists visited us in 2012, accounting for a record level of tourism receipts of $23 billion. Over a 5-year period since 2008, tourism receipts have grown at a compounded annual rate of 10.4% and visitor arrivals at 9.2%. SCB forecasts 2013 tourism receipts to be in the range of $23.5 to $24.5 billion, an increase of about 2.2 to 6.5% from 2012, depending on which point of the range you look at, and visitor arrivals of about 14.8 to 15.5 million, an increase of 2.8 to 7.6%. Looking ahead, our visitor arrivals cannot continue to grow indefinitely and sustainably at the rates we have seen in recent years. Dr. Lim Wee Kiak has pointed out that regional competition for the tourism pie is intensifying. Domestically, our land and manpower constraints mean we need to find new ways to do more with less. The next phase of tourism growth will thus have to come from increasing the yield through visitor spend rather than just visitor numbers. And this transformation and change is timely because externally, the expected rise in Asian tourism over the coming years presents a window of opportunity for us to attract discerning travelers who seek out differentiated and value-added experiences. Internally, we have the essential building blocks in place to continue maintaining our edge as a premier tourist destination. Taking our workforce as an example, Mr. Seah Kiam Peng would be pleased to know that the Singapore Tourism Board, Sentosa Development Corporation, and WDA have been working jointly to raise the capabilities of Singaporeans so that they can take on the higher value jobs generated by our tourism development over the years. Through initiatives such as Sentosa's Train and Raise STAR program, Singaporeans like 29-year-old Nurzabida binti Buang have been able to pick up new skills like budgeting and human resource management and rise through the ranks to assume greater responsibilities that realize their potential. Our local companies are also well poised to benefit from this transformation. Lighting company S Private Limited is a case in point. As part of the 2012 Grand Prix, SMM worked with STB and international lighting consultants to implement a lighting solution and develop a poster mesh that preserved the old Supreme Court's iconic facade amidst construction works. This is a first for Singapore with interesting future application possibilities for the company. So as we push for quality yield-driven growth, we can expect more of such opportunities for our SMEs to partner world-class players and eventually come into their own. What we need now, Madam, in the tourism sector is strong content, especially in business and leisure events. Such software is hard to replicate and will help differentiate Singapore from our competitors, who might be catching up in terms of hardware, infrastructure, and even volume. Strong content also helps to maximize the value we can derive from our current infrastructure. In that regard, we will strengthen our software through new large-scale lifestyle events. We will continue to work closely with the industry to facilitate content curation and delivery. Take Singapore's growing visual art landscape as an example. Today, the privately organized Art Stage Singapore is one of Singapore's highest profile contemporary art fairs. To augment the impact of this event, STB worked closely with industry to catalyze and co-locate other visual arts events around Art Stage. The inaugural Art Week in January 2013 recorded high footfall, strong sales, and good international media coverage. The success of Art Week demonstrates the potential of building a spectrum of lifestyle offerings around a marquee event. STB will continue to complement industry's efforts to introduce other large-scale innovation. STB is also committed to fostering innovation and test bedding of new ideas, which might be smaller in scale. So to this end, STB will establish a new Kickstart Fund with an initial funding of $5 million to support startup-type lifestyle concepts with strong tourism potential and scalability. This includes pop-up entertainment, dining, retail, or arts events, as some examples. The scheme will also provide entrepreneurs access to business advice from experienced mentors from the industry. Over time, this scheme can help catalyze the development of compelling lifestyle concepts here, and they can add to the software that will enhance our cityscape. STB will announce the details and call for applications soon. Even as we seek out and anchor high-value tourism products here, we will also help companies and workers move up the value chain and benefit from such growth opportunities. One example is our 2,000-strong tourist guiding industry. Today, the industry comprises mostly Singaporean guides from a diversity of backgrounds and with a variety of interests. Many, like Ms. Tay Lee Yong and Mr. Seng Sun Huat, provide general guiding services in Singapore's vernacular languages. Other guides offer more niche services. For example, Madam Geraldine Low Ismail has been conducting heritage walking tours around Singapore. And Geraldine offers tourists a mix of historical tidbits infused with her own personal memories. I think that's the kind of tour guides that Ms. Faisal was talking about. As we push for quality, yield-driven growth, opportunities abound for our tourist guides to create unique itineraries for discerning travelers who are willing to spend more for customized or bespoke experiences. This entails more targeted training, as Ms. Faisal Jamal has alluded to. STB is fully committed to working with industry on such capability development efforts, and I would encourage all stakeholders to highlight to the board any skills gaps that need redress. In the specific examples that Ms. Jamal highlighted in NLB and NHB, for example, the tourist guides that are licensed today are in general providing a guiding service to the tourists who come to Singapore. Now, if there are specific niche areas which are run by statutory boards, I think the most productive way to take the conversation forward is to see how those statutory boards can work with STB to allow these niche tourist guides to develop and provide the relevant service. STB's primary interest is to ensure that the guides are well trained, maintain a high quality, because they also receive compensation. I think if there are niche areas, then I think these are specific stat-board to stat-board discussions that need to take place. We will study further Ms. Faizal's specific suggestion of licensing and accreditation of niche tours according to tourist guides, residency areas, or specific focal points. Singaporeans today already enjoy a natural advantage in guiding, given our deeper and more nuanced understanding of our heritage, history, and tourism offerings. We want to enhance our capabilities in this important area, but I also want to stress we want to be careful not to unnecessarily constrain the industry with onerous regulatory or certification type requirements. So we need to find a balance, because there's also a lot of excitement and interest in the voluntary aspects, and we need to preserve that enthusiasm and vigor in this space. Other segments of the tourism sector are also keen to enhance productivity and move up the value chain, and we will support them in this journey. Hotels are evolving their business and operating models using technology and new management methods. For example, Fullerton Hotel worked with STB to refine its multi-skilling initiative. The scheme prepared Mr. Danesh Louis Chandrasekharan, a security officer, to also help with food and beverage services. Louis has benefited from his expanded roles and skills. The hotel has also benefited from the productivity gains. Beyond the hotel industry, travel agents are also raising their game. The National Association of Travel Agents Singapore has been working with WDA on an accreditation framework for the travel agent sector, and this framework enhances the professional standards of travel management practices. And I look forward to NATAS launching this framework later this week. Madam Chair, if I can conclude, I have highlighted the Ministry of Trade and Industry's efforts in 3 areas: ensuring secure and competitively priced energy, leveraging on R&D to promote innovation and productivity, especially among our SMEs, and seeking higher yields in the tourism sector through differentiated products and experiences. These are essential elements in support of our larger overall effort to raise productivity, attain quality growth, and achieve economic transformation. And we look forward to the support of all stakeholders in this important endeavor. Thank you.